Hi, everyone. Very good evening to one and all present here. Please let me know in the chat section if I'm audible to everyone. Kindly let me know in the chat section if you can hear me. Yes. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. All right. So, hi and good evening. Thank you for joining us for the very last session of Unicorn Product Week or Product Week 2023. So it has been a very, very wonderful journey so far because we have had amazing speakers coming in and we have had some very, very good, insightful sessions till now. So for today's session, we have our next speaker who is a seasoned professional in the field. And he brings about over 7 years of invaluable experience as a product manager. And he is none other than Pratul Gupta. And he's joining us from Razorpay. Pratul has a rich background, having managed enterprise and B2B products throughout his illustrious career. His strategic acumen has played a pivotal role in shaping the development trajectory of both Razorpay and Oracle. And today, Pratul will be sharing insights on a topic which is very, very crucial to the success of any product development journey, which is mastering MVP, unveiling the strategic essentials from why to how. Many of you must already be knowing Pratul. You must have attended his sessions. Till date, you have known him as your instructor. But today he is joining us as our esteemed speaker for Unicorn Product Week 2023. So, hi, Pratul, and welcome to Unicorn Product Week. How are you feeling?
Thank you, Tamsha. That was really kind of you, all those sweet words. Really excited to be here. I've always found myself grateful to be able to interact with all the professionals that we get through Accredian. So thank you for having me again for a wider audience.
It's all our pleasure, and the stage is all yours. Please show your magic to all the participants.
Cool. Uh, Thank you again, Tamsha. So I'm hoping they kept the best for the last and not the other way around. So, folks, today, when I was given this opportunity to talk about when Tamsha reached out and said, Pratul, we want you to come to a session, I asked her, what is the session about? She was like, this is about unicorns. And as you work for Razorpay, we want you to talk about what do you do at Razorpay that makes Razorpay so special, right? So before I get started, right, I just want to tell you two things that makes Razorpay really special and why I love it and why I'm here talking about more than anything Razorpay and how we build products. Razorpay is a product first company, right? A lot of time people get it wrong that you can be a product manager at anywhere, right? Being a product manager and being a 10x product manager is very different. And that's where Razorpay separates itself from all the other companies out there, right? And Razorpay is one of the foremost unicorns in India who are like, we have been a unicorn for like close to 3 years now, and soon we'll be a decacorn, right? So what works for us? We'll talk about that. One of the most important weapon in our arsenal is building MVPs and building them right, right? I'm going to talk to you about those things. I'll give you the secret sauce that we have for making MVPs. But before that, I want to tell you more about the rocket ship that is Razorpay, right? I know a lot of you already know me, so I won't bore you with a longer introduction. But about me, I did my undergrad from BITS Pilani. I have an MBA from Indian Institute of Business, ISB Hyderabad. I've worked at two very big product companies, Oracle and now at Razorpay. I'm a product manager at Razorpay right now. I work for their acquisition channel. I'm a mentor. I've been here working with Accredian for a while now. I'm an entrepreneur. I ran my own sports academy and I had a successful exit. But at the core of everything, I believe I'm an engineer, right? So before we get started, right, I want someone to start a stop clock. Is there anyone who would want to volunteer or start a stop clock? Yes, no, maybe.
You
Anyone?
want it from the
Audience? Yeah,
participants?
anyone. Yeah, anyone.
All right.
Anyone who wants to keep a stop clock. Nishant is going to do it for us. Thanks, Nishant. Please start that stop clock now. Cool. So we'll tell you later why I asked Nishant to start a stop clock. But in the meanwhile, let me tell you about the rocket ship that I work for, right? So if we could all turn back time, which of these stories would you want to be a part of, right? These are all mega successful products: Toyota, Corolla, Google Maps, iPhone. Anything else that you think you would have wanted to be a part of? Type it in the chat, folks. I'm monitoring the chat. Which one? Tesla. Nice. Nishant would want to be with Tesla. Anyone else? UPI, Google Maps, Zoom. Yeah, Pranay is saying Zoom, right? So we wish we could go back in time, right? But we only live once. Once a story is made, it's not going to happen again, right? Either you are there or you miss out. But India's financial revolution is happening right now, right? You would keep on listening to all this news, right? That this fintech raised this much money. In this lull environment, also fintechs like Scapia and Kiwi are raising millions of dollars, right? But Razorpay is at its forefront. We are empowering a lot of fintechs that you might not even know about, right? So let me throw some numbers at you, right? Let me just show you the scale at which we are working, right? We have close to 500,000 businesses that we cater to. If you are booking a cab on Ola or you're buying your own BMW, we are powering them, right? You're buying a phone on Flipkart or you're paying your phone bill. We're everywhere, right? We're everywhere. Whenever you order food, it's through us that you're processing money, right? But the good part is we're not only helping the big companies, we are actually shaping up the Indian economy as we speak, right? 94% of all those 500,000 merchants are SMEs. So we are giving the power back. We are decentralizing power. We are giving SMEs an opportunity to grow at a faster pace. We provide them the same stack, same service as we provide to our bigger clients, right? We have touched base with 18 crore end customers, right? 18 crores end customers in India have used Razorpay somewhere or the other without even noticing we exist, right? We are just like that Intel processor which might be there in your system if you're not using an M1, right? 52% of all payments users in the country have used Razorpay somewhere, right? And we are still growing at 30% year on year. We have 1.8 billion transactions, right? The numbers just keep getting bigger and bigger, right? We process an equivalent of 3.6% of India's entire GDP. And this has doubled in the last 1 year for us, right? Trillions of rupees are processed through our gateways, through our different products, right? That's the scale at which Razorpay, which most of you are not aware of how it touches your life, processes, right? Who had turned on that stopwatch? Who was it? That was Nishant, right? Nishant Tiwari. Nishant, can you stop that stopwatch and type how many seconds were there? How many seconds did it take to cover this? $180, right? 180 seconds. Now multiply this by 56. I'm sorry, I'm asking you to do a bit of math. Simple was multiply this by 56. What's the number? Anyone? You all have calculators. 1080, 10,000, right? That's the number of transactions that has taken place on Razorpay since we began this talk, right? How much time it has been? Only 180 seconds, right? And still we have processed 10,000 transactions. That's the scale at which we work, right? And that's the power of unicorns. That is why I'm here to talk to you about one of the main things that unicorns do differently from established companies. Okay, mind blowing, right? One of the things that we at Razorpay take pride of is launching MVPs, successful MVPs, right? When I was asked to talk about one thing that a startup or a unicorn should know about or people should know about, I thought it has to be MVP because it's one of the most misunderstood concepts, right? So here is why you should, before I tell you how to build it, let me tell you why you should, or a unicorn or anyone starting up should build an MVP, right? Here is the two words here, minimum and viable. Minimum, a lot of us think minimum means anything that goes. Make a crappy product, right? Viable, a useful product, right? But if you want to fight the giants in the world, right? If Flipkart had to fight Amazon, right? If Razorpay has to fight Stripe, we have to build viable products or useful products. But what differentiates successful unicorns from companies who couldn't scale is how they build MVP, how they combine this minimum and viable together. Ensuring minimum makes for the sense that we are not taking a lot of time to ship, right? When we talk about MVPs, I'll say a good time or good amount of time you should spend on shipping out an MVP is 3 to 4 weeks max. Don't call it an MVP. It's taking you more than a month to ship out, right? But tell me one thing, right? Before I move to the next slide, how many of you love the concept of MVP? How many of you think MVP is the right way to go forward building products? A lot of you, right? Yes, I think so. A lot of us think so, right? But this, I'm going to show you one slide. A lot of you would have seen it already during your sessions. But that's one slide that is the maker and breaker for what is an MVP, right? This. A lot of us think, I hate MVPs, right? I'll tell you why. I hate MVPs personally. Okay. And I don't believe anyone should build an MVP. I'll tell you why now. But having said that, I'm here talking about Razorpay and how we build MVPs. So there's a conundrum, right? Don't worry about it. I'll set it right. A lot of us think MVP is shipping out something as soon as possible, right? We don't think about how usable it is, valuable it is. Does the end user use it or not, want it or not? What we just care about is, boss, I want to ship out something as fast as possible because Pratul said MVP should be shipped out in 3 to 4 weeks. That is not what MVP means, right? Let me give you an example. Uber. When Uber started, the MVP of Uber was very simple, right? They started in New York. Day one, they had only 3 cabs. They invited only a few people. And what they had to do was just send their location via an SMS, mark it on a map, send it across. That's it. And the car would come automatically, right? Sounds magical. If you could think of it, how good it is. It's feasible, right? It's feasible because I can just SMS you. Valuable because I don't have to wait for a cab. I don't have to pre-plan. Usable. Yes, I have a smartphone. I can use it easily. Desirable. That's what they were testing out. Do people desire cabs on call? And obviously now we all know it was desirable, right? This was a successful MVP, right? They started with 3 cars in New York, expanded to California, and now they're there throughout the world, right? What would have been a wrong way for Uber to do this, right? Because they would have attended some seminar where a product manager would have spoken about building fast, shipping fast. What if they would have said, Ki, boss, let me just do one thing. Let me ask users to fill a Google form. Once they fill a Google form, it will come to my sales team. My sales team will make a call to the driver. My driver will then arrive, right? Now let's look at this feasibility, right? Is it feasible for me to fill out a Google form? Is it valuable for me to wait for my form to reach your sales team? And then the sales team calls the driver, then the driver calls me, where are you? Is it usable? No, there are so many breakages. Is it desirable? Is cars on call desirable? If I would have gone with this notion, my answer would have been no. Reason being, no one would want to have a hassle of filling out a Google form, waiting for someone to call you back and asking you where you are, where you want to go, where you don't want to go. That's why I hate the concept of MVPs. Because people don't get what MVPs are. They're not minimal products. They're not only shipped products. They're not scrappy products. People confuse MVPs for scrappy products. It's not that, right? But what I love is an MLP. What is an MLP? It's the most loved product that is built out of an MVP, right? Or some people call it minimum loved product, minimum lovable product, but I call it most lovable product. Until and unless your early adopters don't love your product, your MVPs are not going to be successful at all. That's why I say I hate MVPs, because people misread the words minimum viable and product. But I love MLPs, right? What companies like YouTube, Uber have made are MLPs, and that's what we at Razorpay take pride in, building minimum lovable products. We don't never, even while we are building an MVP product, we will never ship out a scrappy product or crappy product that is not usable for our end customers. Now I've told you why you should be building an MVP, or rather an MLP. Now let me tell you how you can build an MLP or an MVP. Right? What if I told you there are only 3 key elements that you can take care of, and your MVP will most likely become an MLP? Right? Only 3. Yeah, you heard it right. It's only 3. Right? I promise you, I'm not going to bore you with lengthy lectures. My slides have only GIFs, no text. Right? That's how I prefer to talk to my audience. Right? And I can see some questions flowing in. Folks, I'll wrap it up in like 30 minutes max. Like by 8:30, 8:35, I'll wrap it up. I'll have 20-25 minutes for you. Right? So I'm going to give you 3 key features that if you can take care of, your MVP will become an MLP. The first is have an hypothesis. Right? What is an hypothesis? Hypothesis is an assumption and idea that you have set out to see if it's true or false. Right? Let's talk about the Uber idea that we were talking about, right? What was the hypothesis? That people require cabs on demand. They set out to validate if this hypothesis stays true, right? And that's what they were trying to see. Another product that I love and their hypothesis has been validated across the world is Airbnb, right? Can someone in chat try to tell me what do you think was a hypothesis, or what was the idea that the founders of Airbnb had set out to validate? I'll wait for a minute. I want someone to type it in the chat. Affordable alternative people would allow. People need authentic homestays, one property listed, stay without worry. Cool. Okay. Just imagine, right? You're all back in 2007. You're all back in 2007, right? There is no Airbnb. Okay. Now I come and say, ki, I built this app. Can you list your house here? And a stranger will come and live in your house. Would you say, okay, I'll list it here? No, right? Okay. Let's say I was foolish enough and I said, the person I had reached out to was foolish enough, and he would say, yes, I'm happy to list my house. Okay. One problem solved. Right? Now I go up and tell someone, ki, boss, you're visiting this city. I have a house where a stranger lives in that house. He has 1 room. You can go and stay there, but you have to pay very less. Would you be would you be comfortable going and staying in that stranger's house? Maybe no. Maybe no, not at all. No, right? Now, fast forward to 2023. How many of you, is there anyone who has never booked an Airbnb or never lived in an Airbnb? Not in India, me, but I would. I still not expect. But you're open to that idea, right? Are you all open to that idea? Is cool. So the hypothesis or the basic idea they were testing out was, initially they were testing this out. If you don't get a place to stay, are you okay staying in a stranger's house? That's what they started with, right? They didn't say if you get a place, you will stay there. They started with a hypothesis: are people even comfortable staying at a stranger's house, right? Because this is not a new product. This is a different social norm altogether, right? That was their hypothesis. Let's now talk about Amazon. When Amazon started, when Jeff Bezos started Amazon, what was he selling? He was selling only one product. What was that product? Books, right? Sure, books, right? He was just selling books, right? What was his hypothesis? That I can sell physical items online. That was his hypothesis, right? So if you can, before starting to build an MVP, make sure you have a hypothesis or an idea that you want to validate, right? Don't start with a product and then come to a hypothesis. First, understand what is the user problem or a user need that you want to validate. There are not always problems, right? You're not always solving problems. You are sometimes satisfying their wants and needs, right? It makes sense. The first idea makes sense. Have a hypothesis, right? Second idea, right? Or second thing, if you're building something that is not out there, don't worry about this, okay? But if you're building something for which a competition is out there, or a replacement is out there, or an indirect competitor is out there, make sure your MVP has a differential feature, right? A feature that sets it apart from everything else in the market. I'll tell you why it's important. Firstly, because you're launching an MVP, that means it's not a fully polished product. It won't have all the kicks of a great product, right? And now, if it has no differentiating factor, why would I stop using my current product and move to you? Or if I want to try a new product, why would I try your product? That's why it's important that you have a distinctly different proposition in your MVP itself. Because you're testing out something, test it out as quickly as possible. If you're rolling out a new feature, roll it out as quickly as possible. Don't wait for your MVP to first, because I want to hide my actual idea behind my MVP. So I will not let people know what my actual idea is, right? I've seen a lot of social media die this way, right? They create apps which look same as Instagram, as Twitter, but they have something in mind that they want to test it out, but they forget launching it. People don't adopt it at all. Even if they adopt it, they will go back to the same thing. This happened with Check. How many of you know CHEQ, Check? It's a competitive cred, right? It came out, said we are different, we'll do this and that and this and that, but they could never do it, right? They're testing MVP. People ran to them, but once people realized the MVP doesn't have the differentiating feature that they promised, people are back to cred. Right? So make sure that you have a distinctly different feature present there. Right? Now, before I go and reveal the third one, which I think is the most important one, let me talk about a real product that I built, right? A lot of people talk about B2C products. I'm here to talk about a B2B product, right? So I was building a product for acquisition, right? And as I told you, 95% of a user are SMEs, right? I have users who don't understand Hindi or English. They understand only their vernacular language. But by the way we are designing a product, onboarding requires you to go through an English language form, right? So what we figured out, that we have a partner channel where our partners onboard a lot of merchants for us. What if we give an option for the partners to fill the KYC for the merchants that they've onboarded, right? Here, I'm talking about a product, not a MVP and not a hypothesis, definitely. What was my hypothesis? My hypothesis was the merchants who don't understand English or Hindi want to onboard, but are not able to onboard because they're not able to fill the form, right? That is my hypothesis. And given help, they will onboard. That's the hypothesis at us L0, L1. The top hypothesis is because it's not in Hindi or English, they're not onboarding. Second is they're okay if they will onboard if someone else performs the KYC for them, right? And another hypothesis or assumption here was they are comfortable sharing their KYC information with a partner. So I set out to validate three hypotheses through one MVP. Okay, make sense? But I saw that a lot of companies are doing similar things, not in my industry, but some other industry, but it's definitely not working for them. What I found was the flow was broken. There was a lot of back and forth between the merchant and the partner. So what I did, in my MVP itself, I tried to create a one-click solution where there is no back and forth. The permission and everything is sorted in one click. I'm not going in depth because it's a B2B product. So what we built was a simple flow where when the partner is referring the merchant, they will take a permission that they will onboard them. And while accepting the invite, the merchant will give them a permission. That's it. No frills attached. All right. Now, by doing this, what we saw was we saw people are now starting to onboard. Wow. Brilliant, right? Initial few people started to onboard. I was really, really happy, right? But then I realized that one of the most important things in building an MVP, can someone tell it? I already showed that slide. Can someone call it out? What's the most important thing while building an MLP? Feedback, right? Feedback is the king when it comes to MVP. MVP is a process of interaction and iteration, right? These are the two words that I want you to take away from this entire talk of 30-35 minutes. MVP is a process of interaction and iterations. What does that mean? You need to interact with your customer, try to understand what's working for them, what's not working for them, and iterate on top of an MVP. Then only you'll be able to come up with a solid product, right? That's the magic of MVP for you. If you're able to take the feedback, reiterate it, iterate it, and reiterate it again and again, take feedback, then your MVP is for sure going to become an MLP and a successful product in the long term, right? So what I realized was I was taking the feedback, right? I spoke to my users, what's working for them, what's not working for them. But there's one more learning out there before I close this, right? What's important is that you are not only chasing the core metrics. You're not only chasing, has the conversion increased? Are more people using my apps? But you're also seeing if the users are stuck at any point in the journey, right? Go in depth, right? There are two ways of taking feedback, right? The best way is talking to customers, hearing it from the horse's mouth, right? But sometimes it's hard to talk to customers. Then what do, folks? Then where do you get this feedback from? Brilliant, Pranay. Data, right? Data is your feedback partner, right? You can see through the data. I'll tell you my example. I could see through data that these many number of partners have referred these many merchants. But out of these merchants, only these many have been onboarded by a select few partners, right? Not all partners were onboarded. I went to specifically those partners to talk to them and ask them what happened. Then they told me they're not able to use this feature because of some limitation that they had on their account level settings, right? So because I was not only talking to customers who were successful, not only talking to random customers, I took feedback from the data I was getting and spoke to the right set of customers, right? That's where a successful MLP is built, right? Let's talk about some more examples, right? Let's talk about Airbnb again, right? When Airbnb was built, it took them 2-3 years before they went to Y Combinator and they could sort out a lot of things thanks to Paul Graham. They could never understand what's going wrong, right? I'll tell you what was happening for them. They started Airbnb out when there was a political democratic convention. In that city at that point in time, there are no hotels. But you know how politics is. People are crazy about it. So people are okay to stay anywhere, right? They were so happy that they could validate that people are okay staying at strangers' house, right? But once that conference went away, hotels were again available. No one was staying at strangers' houses, right? So what did they do? They went out to places where there were sporting events, right? Again, they saw that wherever there's sporting events, there's so many people coming in from outside that there is a shortage, or the rooms are very, very expensive for hotels, right? So then again, people started booking their Airbnbs. Again, they were confused that, boss, our idea is working, but as soon as the event ends, why is it not working? Right? Then they went deep, right? When they went to Y Combinator, when Paul Graham took time out, he spoke to the customers, they spoke to everyone. I'm sure most of you know what was their changing point. So I'll let someone in the audience answer it in chat. What was the tipping point? What was the feature that they enabled, or what was that they did differently that made them a success? Brilliant. Improve not only quality of pictures uploaded, but the way pictures were taken, right? So what did Airbnb do? They hired professional camera persons, took them to the Airbnbs which were listed for the longest, went to New York, the more buzzing cities, took photographs and posted them on Airbnb. Now what happened was, people were able to imagine living in those rooms, right? This is how it will help everyone go ahead, right? So feedback, when it comes to MVP, remember two things: interaction and iteration. Interact with your customer, iterate on your product. Interact with your data, iterate on your product, right? So only three things, if you can keep in your mind while building MVP: what is your hypothesis, what is your differentiating factor, and are you shipping it out or not, and how are you looking at feedback, right? A lot of MVPs are shipped out without even talking about feedback. Dropbox is another example, right? When Dropbox launched, it has a beta launch, it launched an MVP, but it kept a section of feedback open where a lot of developers and users gave them feedback. They took all that feedback, and once they were ready, then only they launched it for the entire world, right? That's the beauty of feedbacks, and that's what separates Razorpay from a lot of other companies, because we value the feedback that we get for our MVPs, right? And as I promised, I will stop in 35 minutes from the clock. It's 8:34. I'm a minute short, but that's about it building MVPs. Now the next 25, 30, 35 minutes are all yours to ask questions. Anything about Razorpay, MVP, or product in general, the session is yours now.
Thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful session. I'm sure everybody really loved it. And only 3 pointers, that is having a hypothesis and being distinctive, and lastly, taking feedback and interacting with the users and iterating alongside. Thank you so much. I'm sure I too loved it. I'm sure everybody else also really, really loved it. We already have 2 questions in the Q&A section. Let's pick those questions up. And people who are putting their questions in the chat box, I request you to please put it in the Q&A so that we can pick it up. And if you want to discuss on any question related to this particular topic, as we have a lot of time with us, we'll also be allowing 1 or 2 people to get a chance to ask your questions to Pratul directly, and then we can have a discussion and it can be more engaging session. So Pratul, the first question that I'm going to pick up is of Saket. For a startup launching new 0 to 1, how should one approach MVP? What's the typical MVP timeline in such case?
Got it. Thanks, Sanket, for that question. And I think that question is a question that a lot of people have in their mind, right? So when you're starting a startup, a lot of background work needs to be done before even thinking of launching a product. I'm not going to consider that timeline where you're ideating your ideas, talking to customers, validating your ideas. When it comes to a product build, because it's a 0 to 1, you have nothing at all built right now. I would say 2 to 3 months is the max you should spend time on building it. As fast as better, because as soon as you can get feedback from your users, the more you will be able to refine your product. So in a simple word, reduce timelines as much as possible. Ship MLPs, not MVPs. I'll again clarify that. Don't, because I just said reduce timeline, don't ship out crappy products, ship out products that are usable, right? But 2 months should be good enough for any ideas to be tested and understand what an MVP looks like.
Fair enough. Okay, so that was a very good answer. Next question. There are few questions which are not related to the topic. So first we'll be taking up questions which are related to the topic, and then we'll be eventually moving to other topics as well, so that everybody who has any doubt, irrespective of the topic, can get you answered by you. So the next question is by Tejas. How do you compare an MVP to existing product, like the example of Cred?
Got it. They just firstly, you need to understand it's not us who are comparing, it's the user who are comparing, right? So I'll just give you the same example again, right? Check. When Check came out, it did a lot of marketing. It got people to sign up for it. So what it promised was a different proposition than Cred, right? It said on rents also you will get some points, on credit cards also you will get some point, no transaction fees. So people are happy about it, right? Because Cred wasn't giving that extra bit that people wanted, right? So it had that differentiating factor. But because they pivoted and said, yeah, we will charge you something, but we will give it back to you as check coins, then people didn't use it at all. So you can take on any established customer, any established company in their domain, if you can find out what they're not addressing and address it to the T.
Okay, Pratul,
yeah.
So just to clarify, I can also have questions.
Go ahead.
So just to clarify, you said things you have to be distinctive. So from
Yes.
distinctive, you mean feature wise have to be distinctive, or what you're offering wise you have to be distinctive, or it can be as simple as UI UX, because sometimes that's also something that can
exactly. And Kiwi is a great example of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've not seen Kiwi as a product. It's a UPI payment app that just plays on how do you feel while doing the payments, right? It's just the UI and UX is very different from anything else. That could be a differentiating factor, but you should know what you're differentiating yourself, or what basis are you differentiating your MVP against the existing players in the market.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Thank you so much for clarifying that. Okay, so next question is by Shubham Pandey. What is the difference between a proof of concept and an MVP?
Shubham, a lot of time proof of concept might be a theoretical proof of concept, but in practicality, proof of concepts and MVP are the same thing. So proof of concept is nothing but proving the hypothesis or the concept that you have agreed upon, and same is what MVP also does. So once the MVP is successful, it becomes the proof of concept for you.
All right. Next one is by Akshay. Feedback being essential, analyzing initial data to come up with next iterations. Iterations becomes important. Then does having analytics built in the MVP increases chances of making it MLP?
100%, Akshay. I think you have put it in a very good word, that analytics inbuilt in a product will increase the chances of it becoming successful. So what I've seen a lot of people doing a mistake here is they say, I'll ship out the product and in the meanwhile, I'll add analytics to it. But what it means is they're flying blind, right? I have done this mistake because I had to ship out something. I couldn't build analytics. So I shipped out a product. But what happened was I was flying blind. I didn't know if that product is being used by my customer or not. So I would say, as a thumb rule, have basic analytics in place while you are shipping out an MVP. But if you can have as much analytics, because as I said, out of the three things I said, right, feedback is the most important. And a lot of time, the data that you gather will actually tell you what the feedback is rather than speaking to users, right? So what you need to do is make sure that you have analytics inbuilt in your MVP. If you are able to do that, I'm pretty sure it will have a higher percentage of success if you didn't have analytics inbuilt.
All right. And the next question is Nishant's. I think that's this is an indirect one, but a very important one. Razorpay or payment products are all about money. Hence, trust is a very important element here. So, for a small startup in this new world, when testing a product idea, how do we ensure cybersecurity?
Nishan, firstly, a lot of it is about perception, right? A lot of it is about perception. How secure is your product, right? In the market, if your product has never had a breach, it means it has brilliant cybersecurity, right? So, is your question, how do we ensure cybersecurity? So, I'm not the right person to answer it. It's a more engineering and architecture based question. But if your question is, should we ensure cybersecurity in the MVP? The answer is yes, because your product, minimum product also is a financial transaction product. And without cybersecurity, you're putting your user at risk. So any product you're building in any space which is regulated, you need to follow all the regulations, right? So it's not something that you can just launch a payments product out there without cybersecurity, because there are a lot of licenses that you have to apply for. And those licenses you can only get once you go through the entire security checks that RBI does. So if the question is, should the MVP for any payments product have cybersecurity? Definitely yes. And if that increases your build time, you can't do anything. There is no circumventing the lay of the land or the rules that RBI has laid out. Cool.
I think the question must have been about if cybersecurity
Yeah, I
is
saw in the
important.
chat Nishant is saying his question is answered. Cool, Nishant.
All right. And as according to Moscow, if we follow, I think cybersecurity for any payments product is a must-have. Yeah. All right. So going to the next question, it's by Pranay. Does differential feature need to be innovative only, or it should be something which is needed by user in different way?
Pranay, the answer is it doesn't have to be innovative. It could be needed by user. So if you can, it's basically, I'll give you a very simple example, right? If there's a product to pull my ear and the product does it in this way, but if you create a product to pull my ear and the product does it this way, I as a user will always prefer the product that you have built, right? There is no innovation here. You have just solved my problem in a different and easier way of use. So to answer it very simply, you don't need to have an innovation in your product. You need to have differentiation, and that differentiation could be the way you're solving it, right? In the product that I spoke about in Razorpay, right? There's no innovation, right? It was the same KYC. There was no innovation. I just added a different layer of it, that instead of the merchant doing KYC, I'll let the partner do the KYC, right? So I've resolved the customer's pain point in a different way without innovating on the product. That's what good product managers are all about. I hope that answers your question, Pranay.
So as long as you are solving the problem and bridging that gap, I think it works.
Yep. I think, Damsha, very soon you will be taking classes for all of us.
All right. We'll see that. Thank you so much. Okay, so next question is by Kashi. How do you envision collecting and incorporating user feedback into iterations of the MVP or MLP?
Got it, Kashi. So, Kashi, you'll always have to prioritize what you're listening from the customers, right? There are two ways of prioritizing it. One is the Moscow, what is a must-have, should have, could have. The other one is risk to effort to reward, right? There might be features which a lot of your customers need, but it takes years to build or months to build. Whereas there might be a feature which only a few of your customer needs, but you can build it in a week, right? So if the effort to cost to effort or cost to reward ROI on basically how much time you are spending and how many people are using it, RICE method, that is what you should use here for incorporating all the feedback. So for collecting feedback, there are multiple ways, right? Your product could have a survey page. Your product could have an NPS survey. Your product could obviously have data to understand how the user are flowing through your data. So once you've collected it, then you need to put your product manager hat up again, do a prioritization, do a RICE entirely, right? Everyone knows here, because you have been with the gradient, I'm assuming you know RICE. It is reach, impact, cost, and effort, confidence and effort, right? So that's what RICE is all about. So once you have collected the data, I'm assuming collecting the data shouldn't be a problem. You need to understand which product, which feature can you ship it faster, comparing it to the return it has. Make sense, Kashi? Cool.
Yes, definitely makes sense. Now the next question is by Karishma. Can we charge a client for developing an MVP? Additionally, how can we connect an MVP release to pilot launch or beta release, etc.? From developing, do you mean, Karishma, by for using MVP? Okay,
Or
you can answer.
or you a service-based company, Karishma, which is developing an MVP? So let me answer both, right? So I'll go ahead and answer both.
Yeah, that makes
So
sense. Yeah.
can we charge a client for developing an MVP? So I'm assuming you're a service-based company who's developing products for clients. Yes, you can, because MVP is what lays down the groundwork of any product going forward, right? On the other side, if you are answering, can I charge a customer to use my MVP? Yes, you can charge a customer to use your MVP if you think your MVP has that much value to add. So the answer to both of these questions is yes, right? Additionally, how can we connect an MVP release to a pilot launch, beta release, etc.? It's the same, right? How you launch an MVP is sort of a beta release itself, right? Your MVP is only going to be released to a select few users, and that is what a beta release or a pilot release means. So that's what an MVP is. You can call it a beta version, you can call it a pilot version or anything. It's basically an MVP in the end. If you're launching it to a select few users, it's an MVP.
Okay, so the next question is by Kashi. What's the plan or strategy for iterating and evolving the MVP based on early user adoption and feedback?
Question is, what is the plan strategy for it?
How would you plan? I would put it like that. How would you plan for iterating and evolving the MVP based on early user adoption and feedback?
Got it. Cool. So, Kashi, how you plan is, firstly, you need to understand everything needs to have a standard set before you're launching, right? For example, the product that I launched, I said only 15% partner are expected to adopt this after I've spoken to a lot of partners, right? But I saw only 6% users were using it, right? So if my adoption is less, I will go out and check why is my adoption less and try to optimize for that, right? But let's say if my goal was only 5%, and already saw there are 6% user using it, I wouldn't be worried about adoption. Now, what would I be worried about is, out of those 6%, how many are actually performing the action that is needed, right? Again, going back to a similar case where we are talking about check and cred. Check got a lot of adoption in the beginning, right? But what happened was they didn't incorporate the feedback well, and they lost all the adoption that they had done, right? So it's very important that once you have an adoption, right? Adoption is critical for an MVP. So there is a saying, right? It's to get a new client, you need to spend at least 2x than retaining a new client, right? So in marketing or product marketing, we say acquisition is vanity, retention is sanity. So always focus on the feedback you're getting from users who have adopted it, and first try to optimize for them. I hope
That's
that
a very, yeah, that's a very well put together answer. Now the next question is okay, before we move to the next question, so if you've received a lot of feedbacks, but then in that prioritization is also one of the very
yeah,
important factors. So could you just explain that a little bit, because we haven't received questions around that. So if you could just talk about prioritization a little bit, and then we'll move to the next question.
got it. Tamsha, that's what I told Kashi, I think in the previous question that she asked, that once you have feedback, you should follow RISE. That is
Yeah,
impact,
right.
confidence. Yeah, that's what you should be doing. Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is by Tejas. How do we go more and more towards teamwork and leadership while building an MVP?
Uh, I I didn't get the question. Can you repeat it again once, Samsha?
I think he wants to know, how do you implement or foster teamwork and leadership while building an MVP?
I think when you're choosing a team that will build an MVP is very important, right? Every time when you're resourcing, you will get a chance to work with a few people. And for people developing an MVP, a leadership quality is a must, right? Not only a PM are obviously expected to be leaders, but even from engineering side, try to pick people who are self-sufficient, who are go-getters, because MVP is not an easy work, right? Because a lot of times I'll tell you another example, right, where we tried to do something similar. So before the MVP that I'm talking about, we tried to do something else, right? We said ki we are building an MVP where partner will upload some leads. We will qualify, our system will qualify those leads, and will tell you in 24 hours which leads you should pursue, right? So we said, yeah, we reached out to our internal sales team, tried to talk to them that how are they analyzing all the leads that they get, so that we can build an ML and AI model, right? So before we could build an ML and AI model, we wanted to check, boss, is this a thing that my partners want? So what we did was, we said you upload the lead, but we said you can only upload 20 leads in a day. That's it. And we rolled it out to a sort of 100 partners, right? And not everyone would upload 20 leads every day. So what we did was, we asked them to upload the leads. We took those leads out of the system, gave it to our sales expert, asked them to qualify that leads and send it to us, and we would send it across, right? So we didn't say we are using AI and ML. We said we have built a lead qualifier for you. You want to try it or not, right? They don't know what's happening at the background, right? What they just know is at the end of 24 hours, they're getting a qualified lead, right? This is again how a MVP is built, right? This is scrappy, but it doesn't feel scrappy to the user. What is happening? It's like magic. 20 leads, you take 5 leads at the end of the day, qualified, right? So the people doing this, right? The people who are actually qualifying these leads were all sales people. And in that, we found out who are the leaders. In that, we found out who are going the extra mile to do some extra work, right? So when you're building an MVP, it's very important that you try to identify go-getters, people who are stretching themselves out for the user, right? That's how you foster leadership. Give autonomy to people to do certain tasks, right? A lot of, when you're building MVP, right, this is an example that uh, a few of you might know, right? In with Airbnb also, right? The listing that were coming in and that booking were all done on phone by the two co-founders. There was no CRM out there, right? That's how it's important to identify who are the leaders within the team and foster them, and make sure that they are the ones who are hearing the feedback along with you, because not only you will iterate the product, they will iterate it with you. I hope that makes sense, Tejas.
That makes sense. You have very clearly answered the question. So thank you so much. The next question is by Karishma. And it's a very good question. What is the criteria for marking an MVP as success or failure?
Brilliant. So when you're setting out to build an MVP, right, at that time, before you start building an MVP, you will set a goal for yourself, right? That is what the hypothesis is going to be around. That if my hypothesis is correct, this is the adoption, this is the revenue that I should get within this time frame of launch, right? For the product I launched, I set it at 15% adoption within 3 months, right? I didn't achieve it. That means my MVP has failed. Either my hypothesis was wrong, or the way I built it was wrong. I couldn't reiterate on it, right? So when you set out to build an MVP, before that, you need to have a set of goals predefined according to the hypothesis that you have done. And the best way of doing it is looking at what your competition is doing. If not, you need to work with your sales, business, and marketing team to come up with a goal that you think is achievable by the team within the time frame, using the capabilities that you are building as a product manager.
All right. This question is by Dhyaneshwar. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name properly. Danny, I would say. So Danny has put a very important question, because people consider different things in their mind. So if you could clarify, why do you think that we can have MVP? Why do you think that MVP has to be built in weeks? In real life, it takes at least months to make anything which is minimum and viable.
Annie, I am currently building an MVP that will launch within the next 2.5 weeks. I've already spent close to 7-8 days on that. So I have built multiple MVPs within a month, right? But having said that, there are complex products out there, right, which requires more work. That's what I would say. It can take up to 2 months or 3 months, but you have to define what is the return that you're expecting out of the investment that you're doing, right? Because MVP has a high chance of failure, right? If you're investing 3 months of your dev efforts and you have 10 developers working on them, 5 developers working on them, that means you have invested like close to 2-3 CR in salaries itself, right? So as long as you will take to develop that MVP, the cost of failure will keep on increasing. That's why we say try to build something that is viable and minimum as soon as possible. So what happens is sometimes people don't understand that viable might only mean a feature one, but they always think viable because viable has to be 100% viable. It needs to be a combination of feature 1, 2, and 3. But I would say ship out feature 1, try to see if it's viable, ship out feature 1, try to see how it's the adoption and iterate over feature 1, and at the same time keep building feature 2 and 3. So if it's taking more than 2 months for you, I don't want to say it for certain. I don't know which industry you are from. You might be doing something wrong there.
Also, can we put it like this, that sooner it is in the market, sooner you will be getting feedbacks from the customer, and as soon as you get the customers, you can iterate also, and make it lovable product. So I think that's one of the very crucial factors to keep in mind to get your MVPs launched in the market as soon as possible. Okay, so now that we have covered all the questions related to the topic, there are a few questions related to career. So a lot of people want to know how their journey, how can they start their, what it takes basically to be a PM in the fintech world.
Got it. So firstly, let me tell you how I broke into Razorpay and fintech world. I had no clue how fintech worked, right? A lot of good product companies don't look at domain expertise because that can be built within 3 to 6 months. You don't have to be a domain expert. What you need to have is a user first approach. You should have structured thinking, right? If I were you, I would not worry about learning fintech to break into a fintech company like Razorpay. What I would worry about is understanding how product management works, how you can work user first. And that's what all the curriculum that Agradian has is all about. So having fintech knowledge to break into Razorpay, I can talk about Razorpay and companies like PhonePe. You don't need to have a lot of fintech knowledge, at least for entry level jobs.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a mindset that definitely matters, and how much you know about product management and obviously the application. And if you know all of these, I think it does not really matter about the field that you want to enter.
Exactly.
Everybody.
I'll tell you an example, right? Our director of UPI at Razorpay is from Amazon. He was never working on a payments product. He's now working on UPI for us. It's not only entry level, it's at all levels we have seen that.
Right. It's basically the skills that are required to be at that position that you're applying for, and I think you're good to go if you have those skills in your on your resume in yourself. I think that works. A few questions also related to if MBA is essential to apply for PM roles.
Not at all. Not at all. In my own team, we are 3 PMs. Only I have an MBA, right? It's not important at all. And I personally didn't do an MBA to break into product management. I already had a product management job. The reason of me doing an MBA is to understand business side of building products better. I would say if someone would ask me today if I should do an MBA and then become a product manager, I would say being a product manager is the best MBA you can do.
True that. Very true. Because everything that you learn in MBA, you actually come and do it practically as
Yeah.
a PM. So it's always great if you have to choose between becoming a PM or doing an MBA. I think I would always suggest people to go ahead and pursue PM rather than going for MBA. One question related to the topic is it recommended to have a separate business case just for the MVP to launch?
Separate business case. That's the hypothesis I assume that you're talking about.
Hmm.
You need to have a hypothesis. Yeah. Without that, what are you launching for? What are you trying to establish with your MVP? What are you chasing? Without a hypothesis, there is no MVP doesn't exist.
And Sushil has a interesting question. Please brief your experience in your company, Razorpay. How do you handle MVP, and did you change the change it to MLP? How was the journey in real time scenario?
Sushil, I think through the entire duration of conversation, that is what I've tried to emphasize on. I'll reiterate on it that at Razorpay, we believe all our MVPs have to be MLP. Learned it the hard way because what I'd learned in theoretical classes or working at a different companies was ship fast and then iterate, right? But what happened was our users were all used to having such good quality of MVP. No one adopted my MVP, right? So what did I do differently, or how did I change my mindset to go from a person who's shipping out MVP to MLP? What I did was I went back to customer first understanding of the problem at hand and what is the gap that I'm trying to plug in. What is the three things I told you, right? That is what I did in real life scenario in real time, right? I already told you two examples. I'll tell you another one that we were trying to do and are still trying to do. So we know that now we established that our sales team can do KYC for our merchants. The partners can do KYC for their merchants. Now we are seeing that can we have external people who can perform KYC if we pay them? Right. That's the product that I've been working on. All right. The MVP approach for this would have been just that I would hire a person. I would hire a person, and that person could contact my customer and then see that they're okay to share their information, and that person can fill an MVP. Then fill the KYC. Right. That would have been my MVP approach. Right. But my hypothesis here is that the customer is trust Razorpay and will be okay to share docs with Razorpay rather than sharing docs with someone they don't, right? So instead of building the flow where there will be a direct contact between the person performing the KYC and the merchant, what I'm trying to build is, can I take those information, can I encrypt it, and then only send it to the person, right? That's the difference that I have seen in myself, and I've seen what makes Razorpay a successful company is because we think customer first. What they want, what they don't want. We know our customers better than anyone in the industry.
Rightly said. And as they also say that product managers are the people who represent the customers
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
company. So yeah, it's very, very important that you get to put their perspectives.
Yeah.
Also, now I will be allowing Krishna to put his question forward because he has raised his hand
Go ahead,
since
Krishna.
quite some time. So Krishna, you can now unmute yourself.
Thank you, Tamsha. Thank you so much. Uh,
Go ahead.
Pratul, thank you. Thank you for such a wonderful session.
Welcome,
Just
Krishna.
want
Thank
to ask.
you. Yeah.
And I'm in particularly I'm just talking about this fintech finance field. I'm in this field for 15 years, but my experience is in IT infrastructure management, where I feel where the fintech companies they required a particular person who is having the domain as well as the technical knowledge also it is required, because as a PM you should know like how the transaction is also going on and how to get the KYCs of the customers, and as a PM, you need a lot of knowledge for this. So that's what, I am very much confused because from last couple of years, I'm an entrepreneur, and which is in FMCG product, and moving again to fintech. You told me, you just now you said the background is, it's not, the mindset is required. But at the same time, see, if I am the owner of any fintech company, I will prefer the person who is coming with the experience of fintech, where he has developed some product.
Got it.
Because
Krishna,
I have faced some interviews, and they ask me which product you have made, in finance industry. That is the challenge I'm facing for the
got it.
new job. And so,
Yeah. So Krishna, there are two things, right? There are two things here. The question that I answered was, if I don't have fintech experience, can I break into product management, fintech product management? The answer is yes, right? The
right.
question that you are asking is slightly different. You're saying that if I have fintech background, is it an advantage for me? Yes, it is an advantage for you. But only having a fintech background, will it help you get a product manager role? The answer is no. Because a product manager is not only who has a domain knowledge, but also who has a clear mindset of what the customer wants, right?
Right.
There are see, it'll be hard for me to just narrow down on what all things are required to become a product manager, but structured thinking, customer first, understanding, data analytics,
Right.
problem solving, stakeholder management, top 5 things, right? Then comes if you have domain knowledge. So domain
Technical
knowledge is
knowledge.
not the first thing. If you have it, it's an advantage.
Hmm.
But I wouldn't say that if you have domain knowledge that it gives you a leg up.
What about the experience? In interviews, they ask, what experience you have, how many products you have made, what
Yeah.
products you have worked on. So, that thing is very, now it's same, when, until unless nobody will give us the opportunity, how the experience we will get it, on fintech.
Krishna, I'll tell you the problem that I think you might be having is you might not be suitable for an entry level product manager role because
Yeah,
of
that is the
the that you
problem.
have.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you might not be suitable for a senior product management role because
Senior
of
product also. Yes, very right.
Krishna. That's a hard problem to solve. I won't be able to answer it here because I'll have to talk to you, understand what your skill sets are. You can reach out to me over LinkedIn or TopMate. I'll be happy to help you outside.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
No
so
problem.
nice. So nice. And you're very, very, very nice session. Thank you, and very
Krishna.
informative. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, Tamsha. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Krishna. So, with that, I think we will wrap up today's session, and we'll be wrapping up product week as well. Thank you so much, Pratul, for such an amazing and insightful and engaging session. I though loved it, and I always, as I always keep telling you, I love your sessions. So today's session was another blast. So thank you so much for today's session. Thank you so much. And now that, as I said, today was the last session of Product Week 2023, I would also like to thank our amazing participants. Thank you for attending each and every session. Thank you for sticking with us till now, till 9:10 on a Friday night. That's also something huge. Thank you for making this entire product week such a success. And we had some amazing speakers, and the topics that they covered, the topic that Pratul covered today, the topic that Nitish covered yesterday, and Shenya and Akshay, everybody talked about such vast topics, such amazing topics related to product management. It made the entire product week very, very special once again. So thank you so much. We will be back with product week next year. You will have to wait for one whole year. But if you forgot to attend any of the sessions, or you attended the session midway today also, please do not forget to go check out your LMS. You have the access to it. And if you forgot, if you don't want to do that, you can also check it out on YouTube. And thank you, Pratul, once again for this amazing session. And thank you everybody else also. Thanks, Pratul.
Thank you so much, Tamsha, and everyone who attended on a Friday night being here. Really appreciate this. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Enjoy. Do reach out to me on LinkedIn if you need any help. More than happy to help anyone. Thank you. Take care.
And the night isn't over, so guys, go party. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night, everyone.